love that. Mom, you're not supposed to be checking. Don't open the lid. Thailand's famous Panang curry. If you've always wanted to make this at home, then I have the perfect recipe for you. Okay, so for this one we're going to make our curry paste from scratch, and I love making Thai curry paste. I think it's one of the best ways to get to know a lot of different Thai ingredients and also to figure out what Thai ingredients your Asian grocer has down the road. So let's start off with the chilies first. Now for most Thai red chili paste, we use the dried red chilies for this rather than the fresh. So I've had these soaking in some hot water for about 10 minutes or so. Just want to cut them up. Now we're going to be using a blender today, and I've got lots of little tips and tricks here for how we can best use the blender to make a curry paste at home, because there's a few little things that might catch you up. The first tip is to chop things up quite small, because that's going to help your blade get everything really smooth. And then the second thing, so this chili water, just keep that for when we go to blend, because we may need to moisten the mixture to help it get really smooth. You'll see what I mean a little bit later. Now the next ingredient is galangal. So galangal looks like this, similar to ginger but not. It has a very beautiful pine forest, citrusy, high note to its aromas and flavors. It's really worth seeking out, and it freezes quite well as well. You'll see that there's little bits of pink on here as well. That's another way to tell that that's your galangal and not ginger. Now what you need to do is just peel the galangal, just a small piece, and then finely chop. Next we want some garlic, and then some red Asian shallots as well. Now you could use French eschalots here too. And now some lemongrass. I love that smell so much. Now what we need to do here is bruise the lemongrass. Just cut that end off because it's often very tough. And then peel off these outer layers because they're also really tough and fibrous. And now finely slice. And I also want some coriander roots. So just take those off. Now, if you're using coriander at home and you're not using the roots, just stick them in the freezer until you're ready to make your curry paste. That way you're not wasting any. And now for the kaffir lime element. So this should be one of the crucial flavors for a true Thai Panang curry. And what I like to do is use both the leaves and then also the fruit itself, which is this gnarly looking guy right here. So with the leaves, you want to take those off the stem and then pull the stem out of the leaf as well. Roll those up and then finally slice. And then the lime itself, so the lime juice inside of here is really bitter, and I've asked my mum about what you can use it for in terms of food. Now she said that in her village they don't use it for food, they just use it to put in their hair, funnily enough. But anyway, I have not tried it in my hair, but you guys feel free. What we need here is the actual lime peel. So you want to get as much of the peel as possible without too much of that white stuff underneath, because that will be bitter. A little bit's okay. Just need 2 or 3 slices here. Now I just want a really fine chop on this. Now I know this ingredient's going to be a bit hard for a lot of you to find. Don't worry, if you can't find the kaffir lime itself, then just use the leaves and just leave that out. But if you can get a hold of these, it really makes a big difference to the paste. And then shrimp paste. Yes, it's kind of funky smelling, but it adds a beautiful saltiness and background umami flavor to the dish. You don't even know it's there at the end. So just pop it in the paste and don't worry about it. And now for my dried spices, a little bit of coriander and some cumin. And then the last ingredient you'll find in some recipes and not others. I've done my paste with and without, but there's some peanuts here, but if you have allergies, you can totally leave these out. Won't make a huge difference. Now let's start blending. Now if we have a look here, this is one of the pitfalls of using a blender instead of a mortar and pestle to make your curry paste. So have a look and you can see that what we're getting here is just a lot of chopped ingredients. We're not getting a paste, we're not releasing or smushing out all those beautiful essential oils and flavors and aromas from the ingredients like you would do in a mortar and pestle. So my tip is to add a little bit of liquid to this. Now a lot of people add oil. That doesn't work out quite so well, because for me that then becomes like an emulsification. The oil thickens up, the ingredients thicken up, and everything just becomes the wrong texture. So what you want is some of this chili soaking liquid. A couple of tablespoons first, And because this is just water, when we go to cook it out, it will eventually evaporate and cook out of the paste. So don't worry too much about how much you add. And that's better, but I can still see we're just getting a chop here. So I'm gonna add a little bit more. And that's better. So what I can see here is that that blade is actually catching those ingredients and they seem to be turning over quicker and faster. Exactly what you want to look out for. Okay, so this is the texture that you're looking for. And this makes enough for 2 amounts of Panang curry, which is good because you don't want to do all that chopping just for one dinner. Share it out over 2. And you can just store the unused curry paste in the freezer. Now comes the easiest part, and that's the cooking. So I just need a little bit of oil and half of that curry paste. And I want this curry paste to sizzle and cook out a little bit in the oil because the heat is going to be releasing even more of the flavour and the aroma and then cooking out those raw aromatics like the garlic and the shallots. All of this contributes to flavour. That's what it's all about. Okay, so that's had a minute or so. It smells amazing. Now I'm going to add in my chicken, and this is chicken thigh. You could use breast as well, but I'm going to do this the slow way. And the darker meat suits this style of Panang a little bit better. And now we add the coconut milk. And as I mentioned, there's a couple of different ways to do Panang. One is really quickly, almost like more like a stir fry style. And for that one, you can use chicken breast or prawns or seafood even. But I'm gonna go with the more traditional, slower cooked method here. And this one's really great for tougher cuts of beef or the chicken thigh. And then pop a lid on, turn the heat down, and let that simmer away for half an hour. Mom, you're not supposed to be checking. Don't open the lid.
Just checking. Listen to your mom. Why is your boss all the time?
Okay, so this is smelling so amazing. Let's have a look. Ah, and that's just what we want. So this longer cooked Panang style of curry has that really nice thick sauce and some of that red oil on the top. Just perfect. Okay, now for the seasoning, because of course we haven't seasoned this yet with the fish sauce and palm sugar. I like to do it at the end. I always like to taste first, just get an idea of how things are going. Now for the palm sugar, you'll see that it usually comes in these hard blocks. So you just need to shave that sugar so it dissolves quickly into the curry. And then the fish sauce as well. Let's see how we're going. Almost there. To me, this style of curry should have a little bit more sweetness than usual, so I'm going to put a little bit more palm sugar in. And now we're floating in that territory of the amazing. You know, the thing that I love about Thai curries is you bring all these huge flavors like fish sauce and galangal and kaffir lime leaves and palm sugar and chilies, and then you create something so harmonious and so beautiful at the end. That is just delicious. Now to serve this up, dish out the curry first. Ah, look at how thick and luscious that is. And then a little drizzle of extra coconut cream on the top. And as I said at the beginning, the kaffir lime leaf flavor is really important here. So I want some extra finely sliced leaves on the top and just a couple of slices of chili. And there you go, guys, a classic Thai Panang chicken curry. One of my favorites. I hope you love it too. That flavor, so amazing. It's just an explosion of everything that's wonderful about Thai food. So good. Okay, we are gonna make the most epic, most flavorful, so rich and delicious and chickeny soup broth in like record time. Record time. This is a great noodle soup dish to have during the week, even though you would think noodle soup is something that takes a lot of time. Let's do the quick version. Okay, we're gonna make a paste first of all, and I want some garlic. I'm just gonna pop the skins off those. And you don't have to be too fussy here because I'm gonna strain the broth. So just take the kind of big chunks of skin off. I wanna try and have this done in like 45 minutes from start to finish. So We don't need to be all fine dining here. Now, some coriander roots. And those of you who have been watching my channel for a while will know this paste by now. You should know it. It's a very classic Thai paste called samgler, and we use it as a base for, like, you know, noodle soups, stir fries, curry pastes. And a lot of you have said that you can't get coriander bunches with the root end. That's okay, just use as much of the stem as you can. And I want some peppercorns and a little pinch of salt. All right, rough paste is what we're going for here. So once everything looks a little bit like this, then we're good to go. Just going to heat up a little bit of oil in my pot here and add in that paste. It's such a wonderful, comforting smell for me. Reminds me of my childhood, my Thai mum cooking whatever it is that she's cooking in the kitchen. Always that garlic and coriander pepper smell. Instantly like a nice big hug. Now I'm going to add some chicken in here, and I'm using drumsticks because they're super cheap. I often have them in the freezer as well, and they do have a lot of flavour that's going to go into our soup as well. Now the idea here is that we're building up layer upon layer of flavour. Just because we're doing things quickly doesn't mean we can't do them, you know, nicely, or the best way possible in the time given. So what I want here is I want the chicken to get a little bit of colour, and that little bit of colour is going to flavour, well, that's what's going to flavour the stock as well. So the trick here is to get those chicken pieces just browning, but don't burn the garlic. So just keep an eye out there, keep the chicken pieces moving a little. This is such a great way to make store-bought stock taste like super homemade. No one will even know. Okay, so see that golden brown colour? That's the situation we're after. So now I'm going to go in with my flavourings. I've got some star anise, some soy sauce, and some dark soy sauce. And I love the dark soy sauce here because it gives the soup a really rich, deep, dark colour, which kind of fools you into thinking that it's been simmered for hours. And now our good old store-bought chicken stock. I mean, if you have homemade, obviously go ahead and use that too. And now I want a little dash of sugar here as well, and that's going to balance out the salty flavours and create a really beautiful roundness in terms of flavour for the soup. Trust me, you could leave it out if you wanted to, but I do find it just adds an extra kind of complexity. Now bring this up to a little bubble and just let it simmer away for 30 minutes. So in the meantime, let's get the rest of our stuff ready for our soup bowls. So the first thing I want to do is prep my noodles, and you might think this is a bit weird because we're going to cook the noodles in boiling water later, so what do we need to do with the noodles now? Well, I find with these type of dried rice stick noodles, they really benefit from some soaking before you go and cook them in the hot water. And what that does is it leaves the noodles with a chewier texture, because I guess some of that starch must come out in the water as it soaks. And seeing as we're going to wait for our stock anyway, you may as well go ahead and soak your noodles. And that's just room temperature water, and you'll see a bit later on that they soften up quite a bit. Now the other thing I want here is some nice little bites of greenery. So I've got some choy sum here, but you could use pak choy, you could use bok choy, you could use broccoli, whatever kind of green that you've got handy at home. Just a little bite-sized chunk. And some herbs. And I love that you can really add like such a great kick of fresh flavor and like make things extra special just with a few little extra herbs. So I'm going to use some coriander and some spring onion. And now all we have to do is wait for that broth to do its thing. This is smelling so amazing right now. Now I have been skimming just lightly the top of that soup as it's been simmering away. And I'll just do one final little lift off here. And now chicken drumsticks, I want to save those for my soup bowl. Now let's strain that broth. Look at that colour, oh, amazing. Now let's keep that soup broth nice and hot. Now this isn't optional, but I love having Asian meatballs in my noodle soup, so I've got some pork balls here to add in. I mean, you could make your own and just kind of like make little pork meatballs and pop them in there as well, or just leave it with the chicken. Keeping it simple is just fine. The one thing you must do is check for seasoning. So as always, I mean, you know, starting out with different types of chicken broth, whether it's homemade or store-bought, they could all affect the amount of salt and savouriness in the soup. So that's why you always got to check. Ooh, that is very close. Oh, that's good. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit of fish sauce for my liking. Just a couple of spoonfuls. I also like to serve some fish sauce at the end at the table. People can add their own. All right, let's get the rest of our noodle bowl ready. So have a look at our dried rice stick noodles. They're now sort of soft and pliable. So I want a good handful of those. I like to do this individually. I know it's like kind of street cart style, but I find you just get the right amount of bounce in the noodle, the right amount of cooking for the vegetable, you know, if you just do it individually. So noodles, a little bit of greenery, and some bean shoots. I've got some water boiling here. And the trick to keeping your noodles really nice and bouncy rather than kind of like flat and soggy is to do this like super quick, and I'm talking matter of seconds. So your scoop of stuff goes in, kind of jiggle it around with your tongs, and I don't know, what are we counting? 5 seconds, 10 seconds, maybe a little longer. Just until those noodles are tender. Scoop that into your bowl. Now we want one of our drumsticks in here, and that's the other great thing about using drumsticks. We can just get it straight out into the bowl. Don't have to shred the meat or anything. Good handful of our spring onion and coriander. A few of our pork balls. And then here comes that glorious soup. Final little adjustments here. Some Thai basil. These are kind of optional, but I like to kind of add these bits and pieces at the end. And of course, a little bit of chili powder for me, guys. And there you go. Noodle soup, woe to go in like less than 45 minutes, and wait till you try this soup. I mean, the flavor is so incredible for something that we've done so quickly. Can't wait to get in there. Steaming bowl of soup, noodle soup. There is like nothing better in this world. Chewy noodles. Wow. Honestly, every time I make this soup, I just am always amazed. It's like one of my go-to noodle soups at home, because the flavor, I mean, it's so complex. You get like this beautiful, you can taste the beautiful background of that star anise and the kind of background heat from the pepper, and then you get that salty savouriness and the chickeny. Like, it tastes like it's been simmering for hours, honestly. I mean, this is really one to get excited about. Yum. Fragrant, savoury, spiced rice and chicken. This one is a Thai food classic, and I'm going to show you how to make my version at home. This is Khao Mok Gai. I love this one, and it's very unique because it has a very different flavour profile to most Thai dishes. This one has lots of rich dried spice flavors and curry powder flavors. It's really awesome. All right, let's get going on the marinade paste first. So we start off with quite classical Thai ingredients. First of all, we want some garlic and some coriander root. And now some ginger. Just a little dash of salt here, and you just want to pound this to a smooth paste. Okay, so this is the kind of situation that you're looking for here. I'm going to get that straight out into a big bowl. And now come some of the ingredients that you don't usually find in Thai cooking. So this dish has its origins in the Muslim community here in Thailand, and so some of the ingredients are not as familiar to our Thai everyday cooking. I'm going to add in some yogurt and some curry powder. And again, I think a lot of people think of Thailand, they think of curries, but we don't often use curry powder as an ingredient. We generally rely on fresh ingredients like lemongrass and galangal and chilies for our curry pastes. There are some dishes with curry powder, obviously this is one of them. And I want some fish sauce and some turmeric. The turmeric here really is one of the defining flavors and colors of this dish, so it's really important. Now just give that a mix. Now I'm going to add in my chicken pieces here, and for me guys, it's got to be dark meats for this one. It's got to be drumsticks and chicken thighs because they tend to remain juicier while they're cooking in your big pot. Now just give that a mix. Now, if you're really organized, it would be great if you could leave this to marinate overnight, but I generally tend to not be that organized or have that much time, so I'm going to pretty much use mine straight away. Now, the traditional thing to do here would be to deep fry that chicken. I'm going to do it in a little bit more of a convenient way today. I'm just going to shallow fry it in a little bit of oil. Now take your chicken pieces. Now the only way to do this really is with your hands, so going to have to get a little dirty here. Just scoop off most of that marinade because I'm going to use that marinade a bit later, and get your chicken straight into the pan. Now the idea here is that we want to get a really beautiful deep dark color on our chicken pieces. One, it just looks great. Two, it starts to develop a really beautiful flavor when we get that caramelization. You'll see this. Now remember, don't throw that marinade away, we need that for later. Okay, so a couple of minutes and let's turn these guys over. Oh, that's perfect. Look at that beautiful colour. Now a couple more minutes on this second side. And now just transfer that chicken out of the pan. It doesn't need to be cooked through, it'll finish cooking a bit later on. Now would you take a look at that gloriousness happening in the bottom of that pan there? That is some good chicken fat and we are not going to waste it. So I just want a good few spoonfuls of that. And then I'll just get this pan cleaned up so we can continue on. Okay, so I've got my clean pan. I'll pour that chicken fat back into there. And now let's go in with some onion. And always when I'm sweating down onions like this, I add a little dash of salt. And you'll notice that throughout a lot of the dishes that I cook, there's some seasoning that happens every step of the way. We seasoned our paste at the beginning, we added fish sauce into the chicken, a little bit of salt here, and that really helps to develop the flavors in the finished dish. Now once these onions have had a few minutes to soften up in here, now these onions are soft, a little sweet now, I'm going to add in some tomato. And I want to give this tomato a little bit of time to kind of get all mushy, make friends with that onion. Okay, so see how that tomato is a little bit pulpy? Now we want to add in the rice. This is a Thai jasmine rice. Any long grain rice will do. Now I'm going to sprinkle in some crispy fried shallots. Now that chicken marinade we saved earlier, that goes in here. This dish reminds me so much of an Indian biryani. In fact, a lot of people call this Thailand's version of biryani. And now some spices. You want a cinnamon stick, some green cardamom pods, and a couple of bay leaves. And some chicken stock. Already those beautiful spices are really making my kitchen smell delicious. Now we nestle those chicken pieces back into the pan, nice and snug in there. Now put the lid on, turn the heat down a smidge, because I just want a gentle bubble on that liquid. So in the meantime, we're gonna make a little minty sauce to go on at the end. Now you would have heard me say this before, but it's often the condiments that make the dish here in Thailand, so don't skip this one. What you want is a big old lot of mint here, and some coriander, and a little spicy kick. I want a green chili here. This one's fairly fiery. And now some white vinegar, dash of sugar, and a little pinch of salt. And blend that till it's really nice and smooth. Okay, so this is what you're after, and whoa, that beautiful fresh mint smell is so lovely, and that colour, oh, so joyful. I love that so much. It is just like an instant brightener. That beautiful tangy vinegar infused with all those herbs and just that little touch of sweetness. Oh, and that little touch of spice. Perfect. Right, so the only part about this dish that sucks is waiting while the smell in your kitchen is so delicious. Oh, I wish you guys could smell this. Let's take a look. Beautiful. That rice has soaked up all of that flavour, that chicken is cooked through. Now, my little trick here is to just fish out the chicken and pile it up in a corner over here, and that gives us a little bit of space to fluff up our rice. Before I get to that though, I'm just going to pull out some of these spices that I can see, the cardamom pods, bay leaves, cinnamon stick, and then using a fork, just get in there and fluff that rice. Now I start off by scooping the rice on the top, and then have a look down the bottom there. You can see we've got some really dark, crusty bits of rice. That's my favorite bit. I just like to kind of scoop that up and mix it through. Any really dark bits, take those out and leave those on the side. I kind of sneak them and eat them myself. Now that's looking good. And we are ready to go, my friends. So pile up a nice bit of that gorgeous sunshine yellow rice. A couple of pieces of chicken. And the finishing touches, a little sprinkling of coriander, some more crispy fried shallots, and that epic green sauce we made earlier, and then a little dash of sweet chili sauce. And that, my friends, is one homemade chicken rice dish that is so comforting. Even just the smell of it cooking is ridiculously comforting for me. Let's have a look. I like to get the perfect mouthful always. So a little bit of chicken, some rice, don't forget those sauces. Holy smokes, that whole combination of flavors is just insane. Oh, that beautiful rice, those spices, the chicken, but then that real pop of vinegar herbiness at the end. Just like seriously amazing. Oh, I love this kind of home cooking. Simple, but yeah, so good. Yeah. So this one is a restaurant classic, but boy do I have an epic recipe for you guys to make at home. Sweet, tangy, glossy sauce, beautiful toasty cashews. This is my Thai cashew chicken. So cashew chicken is one of those dishes that's sort of like sweet and sour. There are so many different versions, so many different variations of how sweet, how sour, all the different things. Well, this one is my version. So I hope you enjoy it. Mine is probably more on the slightly tangy, not so sweet side. And because I'm me, I'm going to be adding in some chilies because, you know, I'm me. All right, let's do the chicken part first of all. And I'm using chicken breast here, which is odd. Usually I'm a thighs and legs girl, as you guys know. But I do know a lot of you like to use chicken breast, and I do quite like it in this one. And always for me, directly season the meat. Seasoning flour to me is such a waste of time. And so many recipes do call for seasoned flour. I just think if you want some seasoning, get it straight on, whatever you want to season. Now I'm just going to mix that through. And I want some corn flour on here. And for all my American friends, that's cornstarch to you. It's the same thing, just called a different name. And let's just mix that. Okay, now I want to make a really quick sauce here. Really simple ingredients. Just you want to get the right balance of light, sweet and tangy here. So I want some soy sauce and some dark soy sauce. I've got dark sweet soy sauce, but it's mainly for color here. So just a regular Chinese dark soy sauce is fine as well. And some white vinegar and some sugar. Oh, I almost forgot, a little dash of corn flour as well in here. That's going to help us thicken up and get our sauce all shiny and glossy. Okay, just give that a mix. And now we're ready for our chicken. So essentially we're going to be cooking the chicken twice. First of all is a bit of a shallow fry. I've got some oil in my wok here. It's going to have a look. And yeah, we've got some nice little bubbles here, so that tells me we're good to go. And just kind of dust any excess flour off that chicken and then into the oil. Now I don't need this chicken to get really dark. We're not doing a deep fried chicken here. I just want a kind of nice sealed coating on the outside of that chicken, and that is going to soak up all the sauce when we come to do the stir frying later. Okay, so that's looking pretty much right. Alright, I'm going to take that chicken out. And it is important when you're cooking chicken breast that you don't over fry it in this first step, because that's when you get really dry chicken breast at the end. First cook on the chicken done. Now we're going to bring everything together. So I want to get my wok heating up, of oil and some garlic, some onion, and then I like to get my cashews in here straight up because I want them to kind of toast and get nice and golden in there. Okay, so see how we're getting that really nice colour on those cashews? It's just what I'm looking for. So now I'm going to add in some dried chilies. These are optional, but I love that kind of deep, savoury, almost smokiness that you get from dried chilies. And these ones aren't very hot, so they're not going to make it too spicy. It's going to add some flavour and colour. And just chopping them straight in with some scissors. And now some capsicum. Oh, I love all the colours in this dish. So bright and cheerful. Okay, now in goes my chicken. And our sauce. And now just keep stir frying this for a minute or so until that sauce thickens up, the sugar will dissolve, everything will magically turn shiny and glossy. And now for some greenery, I want some spring onion. See what I mean about the glossy? Beautiful. Now to my liking, this isn't a super saucy stir fry. It's like a sticky kind of stir fry. So that looks perfect, and time to get it out on our plate. such a simple dish, and yet, you know, the color and the beautiful sauce, you know, sometimes it's just the simple things done right that really are so perfect. I love that. The sweet and tangy sauce, but slightly more on the tangy side. That little pop of chili is good. And the creamy cashew. Just a really good dish. Oh, I hope you guys love this one as much as I do. Yum.